Joining me, Gareth Soloway has been in the weeds in some of the high beta trades, shortened mostly over the last couple months, looking for that pullback. He's the chief market strategist of Verified Investing. Right, Gareth? I feel like maybe three of the last conversations we had were centered around trying to pick shorts. Obviously, that was rough for the first quarter, but how much of it got paid last week?
Yeah, hefty amount. I mean, S&P is now basically flat on the year. We've gotten the breakdown on the S&P of the wedge pattern that was sloping up since last October. And now it's really a matter of shorting the rips versus buying the dips.
When you look at the rips right now, how do you know if it's something that's going to blow out the bears if they stab again? What's your process looking like when it goes straight up like it did for months, slows down, which it did, and then kind of buckles and breaks hard in the case of NVIDIA Friday? Maybe we start there.
Yeah, so with NVIDIA, that's a great example, is that you had so much kind of craze, right? It was the AI craze. And ultimately, NVIDIA was the last kind of horse standing, if you will. We've seen it kind of be the one that all the money rotates into. Obviously, SMCI, some of these other ones as well. But NVIDIA is the mega cap. It's the one we all hear about. And then what ends up happening is finally that buyer liquidity, that FOMO finally stalls out. And the sellers have now taken over to the downside. And when you get a big down day, like 10% on NVIDIA that we saw on Friday, it does a ton of technical damage, and it's going to make buyers be very wary. And you're going to see a lot of sellers that are back at the all-time highs on NVIDIA near $1,000. They're going to be just looking to get their money back and then exit the trade. So it changes the whole dynamic when you get one of these mega down days on heavy institutional selling volume.
Okay, so when you look at the NVIDIA and the way it informs the market, is this basically still our leader as it was to the upside? It indicated which direction we were going. Should we still be thinking about it that way? Or if this week, Meta does great or something, is a possibility scenario passing the baton? Like, do you see that as a possible outcome, or are we still living and dying with NVIDIA?
I still think the NVIDIA trade is still the one the market's going to watch. It's the highest beta play. It's the most volatile of these names today. Again, up $30 on the day. Friday, we obviously saw it down massively as well. So I think that's the main one. But don't get me wrong. I mean, if Meta has a blockbuster earnings report, or if Microsoft does, or any of these other big cap tech, that will take the spotlight away for a day or two. But ultimately, it comes back to NVIDIA. That's been the profit-making trade for so many investors. They're really focusing on as a risk-on, risk-off metric in the stock market.
Okay, let's do Bitcoin as part of this, because I know you've been trading this a good bit. You were taking some heat from the coiners I saw who said, Gareth, you're going to get run over if you keep trying to short this thing. Obviously, it's pulled back, but it's bounced pretty good at 60. So what do you see?
Yeah, and this is a great chart, right? So we fell down to the $60,000 level. There's a major technical support right there. There's also a technical resistance at around 68,000. So we're now in between a trading range of 60 to 68,000. Basically, as a trader, I'm now looking to see, do we get above 68,000? If we do, we probably run and take out the all-time highs. However, if we break below 60, we're headed right for that 50,000 marker. So interestingly enough, you're right. When we were at 74, even 70,000, I was very bearish. There was too much bullish momentum out there, too much FOMOing in on these charts. In crypto as a whole, we've seen the altcoins drop as much as 50% across the board on many names. And now it's kind of now of a trading range where we're watching, and to be honest, I'm watching the tech stocks. I'm watching the NASDAQ as I continue to believe that's a leader for the crypto markets. When people get scared, Bitcoin tends to dump, and we're seeing that again.
Okay, so your view is that if we break that support line around 60, it's a quick trip to 50? Are we talking like overnight, or what do you think that unfolds as?
I would say within a week. Within a week, you'll see that move. And again, it's hard to know if it'll be one of those liquidity flushes where they deleverage and you see a lot of people get flushed out that are using leverage, or if it'll be a slower thing that happens over days. But ultimately, once that breaks, I do think the momentum shifts dramatically to the downside. And then your next major support is kind of that previous high where the spot ETF was approved and we popped to 49,000 right underneath 50. That is now becomes technical support, and that should work as a kind of a lift off or bounce play on Bitcoin.
All right, so first thing is holding that 60. If not, then we open up a pretty ugly trap door. How about for, I think maybe Meta this week or let's talk Microsoft for a second. Let's do Microsoft instead, because we've been talking a good bit of Meta. These two companies, though, have really been solid. Even as NVIDIA rolled over and the chips rolled over, interestingly, some of the more AI utilizers, service providers like Microsoft and Amazon have been holding in. Meta's in that group as well. Microsoft, though, such a reliable trade for earnings. Gareth, do you dare short this going into it?
So right now it's sitting on support. It fell, I think, 5 or 6 days in a row last week, coming into the major support. I'm looking here at around 397. We're getting a bounce today. As of now, it's on support, so I wouldn't short it. I also think that it has broken its longer-term uptrend, so I wouldn't be long either. And again, this is one of those where if we bounce going into Thursday's report, let's say we get back to 410 to 415, it looks much more interesting as a short play to the downside. But currently, we're sitting at 401 right on top of that 397 support. So for me, it's just not enough reward sitting on support to be on the short side. Now, I will say this. I do think that these uptrends on these mega caps have all broken. If you draw trend lines connecting the lows going back to last October, they've all breached. So to me, at some point, if Microsoft does bounce, it becomes a short again, assuming the all-time high does not get taken out. And again, it's important to understand, if you're a trader out there, if you're an investor, you have to be watching that previous all-time high. Once you break the trend, that becomes your marker for where the bullishness takes back over. If we bounce, as long as we don't take out that previous all-time high, it's still a bounce that can be shorted on Microsoft.
Okay. Alphabet an exception to some extent? I mean, the chart doesn't seem like it's broken too much. It hasn't been sprinting, but how would we rank that among the higher ones here?
Yeah, so definitely it's been one that we've seen, and this is so interesting because when they debuted their AI and it was giving false information, there was so much negativity, and it happened to be right at the low end of a channel, and it was right into technical support. It told us that it was a buying opportunity. It's now come up, and in the last week when it was at its all-time highs, it tagged the high end of that channel. So we're right towards the top end of this range. Again, it's hard to know on earnings what it does, but in general, if this channel holds up, you should look for some sort of pullback in the next couple weeks to the downside.
Got it. All right. Alphabet looking pretty decent. Microsoft on support. We know NVIDIA and Bitcoin, but I guess Tesla the worst of the pack. Short it still, Gareth, real quick, because we're over time.
No, I'm actually long Tesla. So Tesla, there's a long-term trend line from 2020, the COVID lows. We just tagged it today. I think it's a buy here. It's obviously risky into earnings, but I'm a buyer.
All right, there it is. Nice. Okay, end on a little dip buying action. Thanks, Gareth, for the picks, pans, chart work there. Levels to look for, helpful from Gareth Soloway at Verified Investing.